It was a big weekend of football that we've just experienced in the Championship. In today's video we will be diving into all of the talking points and as well as predicting the midweek matches that we've got coming up in the league as well. Do stick around for the second half of the video for those. As always, do leave a like if you do going to enjoy, and do stick around and subscribe for some regular Championship content. But without any further ado, let's hop into the matches. Starting out with Friday night's game, we have Birmingham beating QPR by 2-0, a result which takes Birmingham into the top half of the Championship table. They're as high as 12th now. Had a feeling coming into this one that Birmingham might have got something out of this game. I had it down as a 1-1 draw, but yeah, they battled throughout this one and were well worthy of their 3 points in the end. Two first half goals, some outrageous technique for that opening one by Trusty. Whether or not he meant that or whether or not he was sort of trying to clip it back into the area, but audacious effort from him to give Birmingham the lead. Obviously they doubled that not too long after. The second half was a lot more of sort of QPR being on top in terms of having more of the ball in the possession. They did create some openings, but Ruddy was level to pretty much everything that QPR crafted in this one. Had the perfect opportunity to get back into it from the penalty spot, but once again, Big John Ruddy coming up when it matters most. That's now 4.6 prevented goals so far this season for the Birmingham shot stopper, who's been one of, if not the best keepers in the league up until this point. And overall, just a bit of an off night for QPR really, but full praises to Birmingham. I quite like the look of how they're going at the moment under John Eustace. Next then to Ashton Gate for Bristol City, playing at a 1-1 draw with Swansea City. It was quite the inconsistent ride that Bristol City had been on up until this point, so not the worst point in the world, I'd go ahead and suggest. It was the home side who I'd say probably had the better of that first half, certainly in terms of the chances they crafted out. Swansea, as they normally do, had a lot of the ball in this one, but gave it away on a couple of occasions quite cheaply, and Bristol City seemed to get their press spot on in the opening 45 minutes. Quite a few of those chances coming on transitions when they went ahead and picked Swansea up higher up the pitch. Conway with a fantastic strike, but Bristol City could have had 2 or 3 in that first 45 minutes, given some of the saves that Bender was forced into. Second half, and Swansea just seemed to be that little bit more slick with their passing, and in the end they were rewarded with that equaliser. The corner coming in, falling to Nasham on the edge of the box, and then a fine finish. And the away side could have gone on to win this with a couple of the chances that they had later on as well, but finishing as a 1-1 between these two in the end. Very interested to get a glance of Swansea in midweek, as obviously they'll be coming up to Deepdale. Next then to the Hawthorns for West Brom up against Sheffield United. Sheffield United with that much needed win given how their recent form had gone, but not exactly the ideal start for Carlos Corberán in at West Brom. Once again, a lot of the similar problems that we've seen with this baggy side so far this season reoccurring in this one. Most notably, that horrific defensive line, particularly for the first goal. It was an absolute shambles. Ilman Ndiaye with the opening goal, thought he had a terrific game for this one, setting up the second one then for Ollie McBurney. He was causing this West Brom side all sorts of problems throughout the afternoon, but far too easy for this Blade side to get up and in behind that West Brom back line, who was just so disfigured and disjointed throughout this one. West Brom did have some chances and probably should have scored at least one goal, but that's been the story of their season so far, being wasteful in front of goal. But I still remain positive that things will take a slight flip in terms of them being a little bit more prolific in front of goal, given the players they have and the general quality of chances they've been creating so far this season. But defensively, I am massively worried about this West Brom side, and we're 17 games into this season now. I think it's feasible that we are starting to have that debate with, could West Brom actually be relegated this season? 14 points after 17 matches. Carlos Corberán has a massive task to go ahead and turn the tide here, because looking at that squad on paper, I think a lot of people will be under the impression, okay, West Brom far too good to go down, they've got too much quality there, but that's not been the case on the football pitch so far this season, and more defensively slack performances like that, and it's tough to gain the ground back. And the unbeaten streak continues for Burnley, who are now sitting at the top of the Championship after a late turnaround against Reading. Harsh on Reading really, because they had put in a really good away performance up until obviously that 94th minute when Burnley went ahead and snatched this one. But going away to Turf Moor this season I think will cause got quite a few problems for a number of different Championship sides with the manner of which Burnley play, you know, the way they hold the ball and things like that, and the quality they actually have both in the starting 11 and off the bench. It does make it particularly quite tricky, and how sort of tactically astute I suppose Vincent Kompany has proven to be so far. But yeah, it was just one long ball that caught Burnley out for the opening goal, a flick on by Yaku Mate into Torrent, and everything seems to be falling for him at the moment. But the game-changing moment for Burnley coming when Manuel Benson is introduced off the bench, and I mean, I'd go as far to say that he is one of, if not the most entertaining players to watch in the Championship. The guy is just, he's got electric in his boots. He can be absolutely dazzling. It was a fine strike to go ahead and level things up, and then the run to go ahead and jinx past as many players as he did, play the ball into the far post, and then Zaroury obviously to go on and get on the end of it to win it for Burnley. Burnley still remain undefeated at Turf Moor this season. The unbeaten streak goes on by another week as well, and sitting top of the Championship. There's not a lot not to like about this Burnley side at the moment, it has to be said. They're really playing some great football. After that, to Cardiff up against Rotherham. Massive result here for the home side, who were on a 3-game losing streak coming into this one, but it was Cardiff who were the dominant force throughout, really. Rotherham failing to have a shot on target throughout this one. We've seen Rotherham in a few away performances so far this season, looking to adapt a slightly different approach to which they do play at home, where they look to be quite standoffish at times, look to sort of just protect that defensive line with bodies in front of the ball, and they had cause to be, you know, quite a frustrating opponent for Cardiff up until the 65th minute. Cardiff having plenty of chances where they get the ball to the byline, cut it back across, but it was either met by no Cardiff shirt or a Rotherham player will go ahead and block it. But Philogene Bardens with the only moment of quality in front of goal for Cardiff in this one, and it was a fine finish, to be fair. Had several Rotherham players in around him, but kept his composure in front of goal. Thought that maybe he'd taken one too many touches, but had the composure to sort of lean back on himself and then get that strike into the far post. Brilliant strike in the end, and a richly deserved 3 points for Cardiff, and a much needed one given how their momentum was swinging going into this game. After that, we had Blackpool making it back-to-back wins with a 2-1 away victory at Coventry. It was the home side who took the lead in this one. Lovely goal actually, O'Hare with a nice ball into Palmer with that nutmeg, and then a nice finish which saw Coventry going into half-time 1-0 up. But it was probably Blackpool who had the better of that first half, given the quality of chances they created. Blackpool did have the ball in the back of the net themselves in that half, but CJ Hamilton's goal was ruled out due to an offside and sort of interference with play. Blackpool did manage to keep that momentum flowing though throughout the second half. Gary Medine with that looping header to go past the goalkeeper for 1-1, and then CJ Hamilton with the assist for the winner. Jerry Yates popping up at that far post like he's done quite a few times so far this season, and he's now the outright top scorer in the Championship. Honestly, on reflection of the full 90 minutes, I think Blackpool deserved this one. Coventry not at their best, and we've seen Coventry keep things fairly tight over the last 10 or so matches that they've had in the Championship, but dare I say it, I thought they were looking quite slack at the back for this one. Blackpool got in on quite a few occasions actually, and probably had the opportunities to make it more than the 2 goals they scored, given how that first half went for them. But great win there for Blackpool. They carry on the momentum. Coventry just not quite at it didn't seem, in this one. After that then, to Huddersfield 1, Millwall 0, a result which just sums up the Championship this season. Everything prior to this game pointed towards a Millwall away victory, but sometimes this is just how the cookie crumbles in the Championship. It was a wonder strike, cross, long ball in the end that won this one for Huddersfield. Nakayama with that long searching ball forward from the fullback position. In the end, catches out the goalkeeper, and it's some attempt in the end to make it 1-0 Huddersfield. To be fair to Huddersfield, it was a much better attacking performance in terms of the other chances they did create in this one, and they probably should have had at least one more goal in this one, given some of the attempts they had. From a Millwall perspective, I think that's probably as bad as we've seen them all year, to be honest. Quite disappointed considering the run they were on going into this one, up against a Huddersfield defence that has looked so shaky throughout this season. They just didn't put them under any pressure whatsoever, and that's a credit to Huddersfield really for completely nullifying Millwall's threat. They had one half chance in the second half, which Nichols has to sort of scramble off the goal line, but apart from that, Millwall offered virtually nothing in this game. And yeah, still a long way to go for Huddersfield, but that 3 points gets them off the bottom of the table for now. Next then to Blackburn 1, Hull City 0. That's now 4 consecutive wins for this Blackburn side. I think the first time this season that they've strung together consecutive away wins as well, which is quite the achievement. And I think they were probably the better side in this one as well. Had more attacking intent about them. Lovely goal scored by Blackburn, building the play up from front to back, and then that nonchalant pass from Wharton sort of outside of his foot into Smodics, and then the finish to go along and suit that as well. Second half, Hull had a little bit more intent about them. Rovers looked to soak up the pressure from the home side a little bit more, but that bit more attacking quality that we have seen with this Hull squad in recent weeks just wasn't really on show for this one. Ultimately, they finished this game having not had a shot on target, which was quite disappointing. But yeah, Blackburn on quite the run at the moment, and a Burnley-Blackburn top 2 certainly makes for interesting reading at the moment. Yeah, it'll be absolute fireworks when those two meet, won't it? Next then we had Luton playing at a 1-1 draw with Sunderland. Interesting game between these two. It was Luton who looked to have had the better of the first half, albeit Sunderland still had a few threats of their own. Colton Morris giving Luton the lead just before half-time. Nice cut back from Doherty into Morris, who just gets in front of his man to squeeze it in to make it 1-0. Second half, and Luton didn't quite seem to be at the same tempo. A few changes they made later on into that half as well, as they sort of went into protection mode, and I think in that second half we saw Sunderland opening up a little bit more and playing some more football. Nice equaliser, Jack Clark turning provider for this one. Nice little move down the left hand side, he cuts it back into Embleton with the finish, and Sunderland could have gone on to win this one in the second half with some of the chances they had. So point shared in this one. Don't think that's the worst result in the world for either side. After that, to Carrow Road, where we had Norwich beating Stoke by 3-1. If any Championship manager needed a result over this weekend, it was Dean Smith in at Norwich, given the recent run of form that they've been on. It was Ramsey who gave Norwich the lead going into half-time, and a few second-half tweaks meant that Norwich had a pretty comfortable afternoon, all things considered. The second goal especially, lovely give-and-go between Ramsey and Pookie, and then Sarah wrapped this one up in the 77th minute. For Stoke, while they were 1-0 down, I mean, they had plenty of the ball in this one and had opportunities, especially at 1-0, but we've seen them be so wasteful in front of goal over recent weeks that they were just looking toothless up front. Nick Powell got that consolation goal back late on, but yeah, another quite disappointing showing from Stoke, especially considering the run that this Norwich side was on. And, you know, had Stoke got off to a fast start in this one, there would probably been a few grumblings coming from the home crowd, given all the frustrations around Dean Smith at the moment. But good win for Norwich there, back on track, albeit not getting all too carried away with what we've seen from them lately. Next then to Deepdale for Preston 2, Middlesbrough 1. Not the greatest of starts for Michael Carrick in at Middlesbrough. Honestly, if you were a neutral watching this match, it wasn't the greatest in terms of overall spectacle and quality on this pitch, but in the end it was set-piece routines that were decisive between these two outfits. Borough took the lead after 7 minutes with a corner routine of their own. Defending set pieces is becoming a little bit of a cause for concern for Preston, given how many of those opportunities we've given up recently, but Akpom puts Borough in front to make it 1-0. Preston then get back into it with a set piece routine of our own. After the ball was initially cleared, Liam Lindsay hooks it back in, and Emil Rees with an absolute thunder blast. Never seen him hit the ball so sweetly. Rees is that sort of striker where if he's just playing purely off instinct and it's all sort of first time and it's quick, he'll absolutely rip the back of the net open. But when he's got that bit more time to think about things, that's when stuff starts to fall apart. But yeah, typical he'd score against Middlesbrough, given how interested they were in him over the summer. From that point onwards then, there really was, I thought, a lack of quality between these two sides. Borough had plenty of the ball but lacked any sort of purpose or penetration, and Preston couldn't really take advantage of winning the ball off Borough and sort of trying to capitalise on counter-attacks. But in the end, it was Jordan Storey who popped up with the winner. Another set-piece routine after quite controversially, we did have a goal previously ruled out, and I've watched that replay back and I'm still not quite sure why that goal was ruled out, but Story popping up with the winner, Liam Lindsay with another assist, and a much needed 3 points for North End. Lowe did switch to a back four in this one, which I thought was interesting. I don't quite think it had the desired effect in terms of us being a little bit more expressive and creative in open play. I still think that's a big issue for us, but 3 points can't be sniffed at. I think it shows just how much work Carrick's got to do in at Borough. And then to round things off, we had Watford beating Wigan by 1-0. Finally, Watford stringing together back-to-back wins. Maybe this is the start of something under Slavan Bilic. It wasn't, once again, the finest game going on in the Championship this weekend in terms of overall quality. Wigan, who themselves have been on really quite a struggling run recently, I think this defeat now makes it 6 defeats from the last 7 or so, which is cause for concern for this group. Obviously, their home form has been a bit of an issue all season for Wigan, and while they did threaten from some piece situations, ultimately that quality in the final third just wasn't quite there for Wigan in this one. In terms of Watford, there were a few opportunities on breaks and things where they did have those combinations that were looking to unlock that Wigan defence, but they themselves weren't quite clicking up through the gears. A few speculative efforts from outside the box and things like that. In the end, though, that moment of quality comes from Esprilla with that nice ball into João Pedro, and his moment of quality is enough to go on and win this game. Wigan threatened to get back into it, but I think it was Watmore in the end with his headed effort crashing against the crossbar. Ultimately, a result which leaves Wigan down in 20th in the Championship at the moment, just 2 points off the relegation zone. And given their recent run of form, yeah, that will be a cause for concern. But guys, there we have it. Those were all the matches that took place in the Championship over this weekend. I'd like to hear your thoughts on all of them in the comments down below. If you yourself went to a game this weekend, you saw any of the other action unfolding, do let me know about it in the comments down below. But before we wrap up, let's go ahead and jump into my midweek score predictions. So hopping over into the midweek matches, we've got Coventry going up against Blackburn. Coventry not at their best over the weekend against Blackpool, and while they do have quality going forward, this Blackburn side are just on an absolute roll at the moment and seem to have a bit more consistency away from home. I'm going to go 2-0 Rovers in that one. Hull up against Middlesbrough, not the greatest showing from either of those over the weekend. Carrick still got plenty to do with that Borough side, but Hull looking a little bit toothless up front over the weekend against Blackburn. I think I'm fancying a draw for that one. Going to go 1-1 between those two. Luton up against Reading. Reading putting a spirited away performance at Burnley, but just don't quite seem to be on the right side of the coin at the moment when it comes to luck, things falling for them. And I think that Luton may just snatch that one at home. 2-1 Luton I'm going in that game. Preston up against Swansea. Wasn't Preston's finest performance over the weekend, but we are looking a little bit more threatening at the moment from set piece situations. 4 goals in our last 2 matches. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw in that one. Swansea will have plenty of the ball, but I think we could hurt them from a set piece or two. Bristol City up against Sheffield United. Have Sheffield United found the winning formula once again? It's up against quite an unpredictable Bristol City side, but I'll back the Blades for all 3 points in that one and for back-to-back wins, 2-1 Sheffield United. West Brom up against Blackpool. I think this weekend showcased just how much work Carlos Corberán has got on his plate to turn things around at West Brom, who do currently sit at the bottom of the Championship. Up against the Blackpool side, who have strung together back-to-back wins and look really impressive in the process. I think I'm going to have to back a Blackpool away win there. 2-1 Blackpool I'm saying between those two. Birmingham up against Millwall. Millwall are coming off the back of arguably their worst performance of the season, and Birmingham coming off the back of one of their best. So it would be typical for Gary Rowett to throw a spanner in the works and walk away with all 3 points at Birmingham. But I'm going to continue along the lines of Birmingham on this run at the moment. I'm going to go 1-0 to the home side. Burnley up against Rotherham. I do see Vincent Kompany's side coming out on top in that one. Just think Rotherham away from home. Burnley may have a little bit too much for them. 2-0 Burnley I'm saying between those two. Cardiff up against Watford. Can Watford make it 3-1 wins on the bounce? Don't think there's going to be a great deal between these two, but perhaps with a lack of firepower in at Cardiff, Watford may just sneak that one on the road. Going to go 1-0 Watford in what I think will be quite a tight game between those two. Huddersfield up against Sunderland. The booster for Sunderland is the fact that Ellis Sims is now back. He came off the bench over the weekend, so they do have finally an out-and-out number 9 to go ahead and throw into the starting lineup. Huddersfield arguably put in one of their best performances of the season over the weekend though, and Sunderland have been fairly draw heavy recently, so I'm going to go for a 1-1 between those two. Norwich up against QPR. Momentum swings incredibly quickly in the Championship, and I just wonder whether Norwich can go ahead and kickstart another unbeaten run here. It's up against a QPR side who up until this weekend had looked like one of the best teams in the league, but momentum can switch like that in the Championship. I think I'm going to go 2-1 Norwich in that game, you know, just to make it a bit more spicy at the top. Finally then for Wigan up against Stoke. Neither side on a great run of form at the moment. Neither side particularly been blessed with a bunch of goals lately either. I think I'm fancying a goalless draw in that one. 0-0 I'm saying as the final game. There we have it though guys, those are my thoughts going into the games over the midweek fixtures. Do let me know in the comments down below, what do you see happening in those matchups? Do leave your score predictions down there. And as always, if you did go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like and do stick around and subscribe for some regular Championship content. Apart from that, thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you all in the next one.